Good wheels are an investment, but one that can make your riding experience exponentially better. But how do you look after your wheels? Here's how. Wheels matter. No, they really matter, because good wheels can roll quicker, they can roll smoother, and they can help give you more grip and more traction, which are all things that boost the riding experience. With our partner FSA, we're going to talk about all the ways that you can make your wheels last longer. Before we get too nerdy about wheels, I've just got a little favour to ask, and that's if you enjoy this video, to give it a thumbs up and like it. And if you like all the content on our channel, subscribe. It really helps us keep making great content just like this. A wheel is a great example of a synergetic structure. What do I mean? It's, well, greater than the sum of its parts, because all the individual parts, well, some of them are flexy, some of them aren't that strong, but together, united, it's just awesome engineering. There's lots of parts, and we're going to spin through them all. Okay, we're starting from the ground up. We're going to start with a tyre, not essentially part of the wheel, but definitely essential for mountain biking. Next, we've got air, which will be trapped either by butyl tube, TPU tube, or tubeless. If you're running tubeless, you'll probably need some tubeless tape. This sticks directly to the rim. It helps seal in the air and seal the valve. And the rim, well, there's a wide range of different rims in terms of materials. We've got carbon, we've got aluminium alloy, we've even got steel alloy as well. And there's huge variation in width, because it's really application specific in terms of how light it is or how strong it is. But all of these different rim types will essentially connect to the rest of the wheel in a similar way, and that's through a hole and a threaded nipple onto a spoke. This is where the wheel gets pulled together and is pulled into tension. So the spokes, okay, there's wide variation here. The mainstream is still a steel spoke. There's variation there, but you can get aluminium alloy spokes. You can get carbon fiber spokes. You can even get string spokes. Okay, I say string, it's like a NASA space age string, so it's made from some aramid fiber, and it's really, really expensive, but apparently quite good. Okay, linking to all these different things is the spokes and the pattern in which they fit the rim to the hub. Essentially, we've got two different types. We've got J-bend and we've got direct pull. So direct pull just threads in essentially to the hub, or slots in, and then the threading is by the rim. J-bend, there's a hole that's sort of in the opposite direction to the axle, and it's simply a hole to slot in a spoke with a J-bend. They do look really quite different. So how does the hub work? Well, essentially it's all pretty simple. We're going to have where those spokes go, we're going to have some mounts for disc brakes, front and rear, and then on the rear one we're going to have a free hub. Okay, there's actually three different free hubs at least. You've got two from Shimano, the kind of micro spline, you've got the HG, and then SRAM has its own XD. But running through all these different hubs, whether it be the rear and all those different free hub standards, or the front, you're going to have an axle, and that's the key bit that connects your wheel to your frame. We say wheel as if it's a single part, but now we know it's made up of lots of different parts. So when we're going to check it over, we need to be systematic and check all these parts individually. And we're going to start off with rims. We're going to start with a visual inspection. We're going to look for any dents or any dinks along the rim edge. So that's where the tyre mounts onto the rim. So look all the way round. Then look for any dents or scratches in between the spokes. With aluminium, they can dent, but with carbon, they're less likely to dent, but they can crack. So make sure you check around all the spoke holes. For a deeper dive on the inspection, we need to take the tyre off and inspect what's happening on the inside. So again, check that rim edge and the bead edge for any dents or any cracks or anything that just doesn't look right, that needs a bit more inspection. If you're running tubes or you're running tubeless, it's probably a good idea to take off the rim tape. Yes, it can be a bit of a hassle with tubeless systems, but it means that you can inspect all the spoke holes. You can also inspect the gaps in between them, because sometimes if you've been either particularly hardcore with a tyre lever or you've hit a rock with not a lot of air in your tyre, you could have cracked the inner section of the rim. And you want to find out those cracks before they find you. So you've found a dent. What to do? Okay, if you've found a dent on a carbon rim, well done. Carbon is humongously strong and, well, I've not really seen a dented rim. It doesn't say that it can't happen, but you're going to have to put a lot of force into a carbon product to make it dent. Normally it will crack or fracture before it dents. If that's the case, check your warranty and hope that you've got coverage. If it's happened to an alloy rim, don't fear, you can bend some of these little dents and dings out. You just have to be mindful that as you're bending material one way, and it's been dented one way already and you're flexing it back, you can create a kind of fatigue or fracture point on that material. So yes, you can make it work. Even with tubeless, you can kind of flex the rim sidewalls back a little bit, but just be really careful because it's not going to be as strong as it once was. If you're regularly denting rims, or if you're regularly bottoming out your carbon rims, then it's a really good idea to run a tubeless insert. Something like this. Okay, so they're foam inserts that fit in between your rim and your tyre, and it will work with tubeless. You can get tube type ones, but these ones are a really good example. What they do is create a boundary layer between your tyre when it's completely compressed and your rim against the hard surface or rock or log that you've crashed or bashed into. And they can be really, really good. No, they're not hard to fit anymore. These ones are really easy. Even I fitted them. And no, they're not really heavy anymore either. Some of them are super light, sub 50 grams, but they can save your wheel, be that aluminium or carbon. So if you're a rough rider and you're hard on equipment, it's well worth running one of these. Spokes and nipples pull the wheel together, and Jobs Brandts has proven that all spokes matter, not just some in certain orientations. So all that rhetoric has gone, and now we know that all the spokes matter and all the tension matters. And that means that if you feel a loose spoke as you're checking your wheel, well, it's time to make sure that that spoke gets up to tension. The other thing that can damage spokes is, well, physical damage. You can scratch or mar them with rocks, with roots. But one thing that you might not have thought of is your chain. Your chain is steel, and even on other steel, it can chew through spokes. If you've got carbon spokes or alloy, they're softer than steel, so the damage can be even more severe. Now, you might think, well, how does the chain impact my spokes? Well, it can be as simple as you overshifting on that big rear cassette sprocket and the chain falling in between and getting stuck and chewing up. You'd be surprised how much damage can happen. Hubs, they're important. We should check them. We should visually check them and make sure that all the spokes are being held correctly. I've seen the occasional hub body crack under load, but I think on mountain bikes the bigger issue, because of the cruddy and dusty and muddy and boggy conditions that we ride through, is bearings. So, smooth bearings are amazing. They're really ride enhancing, but hub bearings can go out of sort of smoothness very quickly, and over time they deteriorate to the point where you don't really notice that they're not working as well until on a descent they're really draggy, or as you're riding along they're a bit knocky. But help is at hand. You'll have to do some research in terms of what hubs you've got and what bearings they will have inside them. Essentially, we break it down into two different styles. We've got cup and cone, and we've got sealed cartridge bearings. Cup and cone, search for a dedicated video. It is a little bit more engaging. It can be a slightly messier task, but it's definitely something the home mechanic can definitely tackle. Now, cartridge bearings are easier to work on. Full stop. That's because everything's packaged in neatly and we can kind of knock them out and drive in or slide in new ones. But you'll have to do your research to make sure you know which bearings you're going to get. Now, I've been guilty of this in the past, and that's saying that you can refresh your bearings by popping off rubber seals and packing more grease in. And to be honest, I've got experience of this and it can work. But I think the problem is that lots of people think they'll be able to refresh a bearing that's got, well, brown grease in. And if your grease has become so contaminated that it's changed colour from either a sort of clear or a white to a crusty brown sludge that's not dissimilar to chocolate mousse, well, yeah, there's no recovery for that. So if in doubt, just get some fresh bearings. It will make a really big difference to your ride. Depending on what wheels you've got, whether they're factory wheels or they're a custom wheel set, sourcing those spares that we've talked about might be a taxing process. Thankfully, some brands like FSA have put QR codes on their wheels, so you can just snap that image and it will take you straight to a source for all the spares. It's really handy. With other brands, you do have to dig through and find out what bearings you might need and the schematics to work out which way the bearings are removed, be those cup and cone or cartridge bearings. But whatever wheel you've got, taking the time to look after your wheels is well worth it, because they'll keep your bike running smoother. And that means that your riding experience is even more zen-like and calm and just enjoyable. With so many parts of a wheel, it's easy to ignore a wobbly wheel, but making sure that you stay on top of spoke tension, making sure that your rims are ding-free and that your hubs are rolling smoothly, all add up to a better wheel. And that's a better riding experience. Let me know in the comments if you've got any extra tips.